Welcome back, everybody, to the B-BBEE Chamber podcast. We're super excited to be back. Another episode, another topic that we're going to be covering in our session today. And today we are going to be talking about the role of women in empowerment. And I'm joined by one of our consultants at the B-BBEE Chamber. Zanele, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Neil?
Good, man, good. It's great to have you here. Tell us a bit about yourself and your role at the B-BBEE Chamber. You're one of our consultants. What do you do on a daily basis?
So as you have mentioned, my name is Zanele Shabangu. I am a consultant. I've been with the team for about 3 years now. So one of the things that I do is score management. I help clients in terms of making sure that they keep up with their scores, if there are any risks in terms of what they have done. And yeah, basically that's what I do.
No, awesome. And Zanele, just remind me, you mentioned now 3 years. If I recall, you were part of one of our programs.
No.
Oh, okay.
I started off as a data analyst.
Oh, yes, I remember
and then
now.
I moved to being a consultant.
Yes. I remember that with yourself, you went through the whole data analyst role, and then we saw a lot of potential in you and interest in terms of becoming a consultant. How does it feel now? Have you learned quite a bit in the consulting environment? Is it exciting?
It was a huge transitioning, but obviously what I was doing in data analysis is exactly the same as what I'm doing in the consulting area, but now I'm more exposed as compared to when I was just working with data. Now I am client facing, I'm working with clients, and yeah, there's a lot involved as compared to when I was doing just data analysis.
Yes, now I recall. But it's good to have you on the team, as well as also I'm glad that you're adding value to the B-BBEE Chamber members. And every day we're learning something new in our environment.
Definitely.
It's not so straightforward as we'd want it to be. It's complex, but at the same time, it's also exciting. So in terms of our topic today, we're talking about women empowerment, and again, as a precursor to Women's Month that we'll be celebrating now in August. How do you find the legislation speaking to women's empowerment? So we're talking now from a B-BBEE perspective. Is it enough? What are the areas that it covers in the legislation that relate to women?
When we talk about the objective of B-BBEE as a whole, so the objective is obviously to empower Black people. When we talk Black people, we're talking about Indian, colored, as well as African. But in terms of empowering, if you now start unpacking the scorecard itself, you will see that actually B-BBEE actually empower women. When you look at the ownership scorecard, it also allows women to have shares in companies. If you look at skills development, some sector-specific codes, they also make sure that they empower skills development in women. You look at preferential procurement. If the supplier that you are using as well has women ownership, it gets more benefits because you get more scores. You'll be able to score more in areas like where you have more than 30% Black ownership or Black women ownership. So B-BBEE definitely it is empowering women, but I do feel that more can be done in terms of education. Because a lot of women, or in particular people that are in rural areas, they are not aware of the initiatives or the opportunities that are available to them in terms of B-BBEE initiative. So in terms of awareness, making sure that these people are aware of what is happening, what the opportunities they have, and also giving them education in terms of what B-BBEE entails. Yeah.
Now, I think you've also touched a significant point, and I mean, for those viewers that have seen a few of our episodes before, you'll notice we always harp on this point of education. There's a lot of people that don't know, about our legislation. They don't know how it works. They don't know that there's actually real benefits attached to certain initiatives. And only if they are aware of these types of things, they can then, take advantage of it or be a part of the programs or be a part of the initiatives. And it's quite scary because, this legislation has been created for majority of the population, and not a lot of people actually know about it and actually know the details of it and how to then position themselves in the market to leverage of the legislation. So yes, I agree with your point, education, wherever possible. We want to try to educate from the B-BBEE Chamber. to anybody that's out there that needs to have this type of knowledge. So education is critical. Do you feel then the legislation is doing enough for women in terms of empowerment? You mentioned, ownership, skills in certain sector codes, procurement, even touching on management control. There's a bit of benefit there. Do you feel like it's enough? Do you feel like there needs to be a lot more provided in terms of point indicators and targets? Do you think there can be more be done?
Well, the legislation has an objective. Obviously, the objective is to empower black people. But in terms of is it doing enough, I would say, sure, I don't know. I'm not sure, because as I have previously touched on, that not a lot of people are aware of the opportunities that are available to them. So yeah, the legislation, it knows what it's doing, or when it was written out, it was written in a way of empowering black people. But in terms of is it reaching to the right audience, that's also a question for me.
Yeah, look, I think we've evolved, since 2007, which was the first code of practice that was released in 2013, 2019, sector codes. I think a lot has changed during that time up until now. Our economy has changed, our country dynamic has changed, our issues that we face as challenges have changed, as well as our solutions, as in a lot of things have happened over this last couple of years. And sometimes you feel like, policy also needs to be agile enough to be adjusted when it needs to be adjusted to then cater for our current economic times. I have had conversations before in the past where, it's found that the scorecard is not doing enough for women. The scorecard is not doing enough for youth or people with disabilities. So focusing and zoning in on those designated categories, as we call them underneath the BEE legislation, it doesn't seem to be doing enough. So perhaps there is going to be a time for a review. Do you think that do you think it's a good idea right now to have a review of the entire BEE legislation landscape?
Yeah, as you have touched on, that it has been legislated 2007, a lot has changed or taken place since that time. So obviously, it might need to be reviewed again.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also, just if those that have not seen as yet, there's been a few articles floating around. The DTIC is also looking at reviewing the legislation and perhaps looking at certain areas. Even the president also has come out and supported and reaffirmed the country that BEE is here to stay. It's just a matter of getting it right, getting it to a level that is going to be, implemented better going forward, and again creating more sustainability for us as a country and also businesses. If you had to, and maybe this is your opinion, and maybe just give it some, maybe you're going to have to think about this one. If you had to choose one element on the scorecard where you would want to change something to introduce women in some form, which element would that be?
Skills development.
Okay, all right, that was very quick. Yeah, you didn't have to think about that, you already knew your answer.
I'm very high on education, so I feel like if there is a lot of education that is being given, especially to women, we can move to the right direction.
All right, that's quite interesting. I mean, from my side, I think I would also agree. Skills development, upskilling, development, also then looking at ways of creating a knowledge base and a skilled workforce, especially focusing on women, can be beneficial for individuals, for businesses, and our country as a whole. What about enterprise and supply development? Do you think more can be done there? I think, yes, you've mentioned skills development, but this is also one of the largest elements of the scorecard. It looks at procurement chains, it looks at businesses establishing your own business. Do you feel like there could be more being done in that area?
Potentially, yes. I mean, we do have a lot of women in entrepreneurship. So obviously, they can tap into enterprise and supply development as well as procurement. So yeah, there is potential for the growth in enterprise and supply development.
Yeah. So I would always see it as a connection between the two. Looking at how best can we upskill individuals and train, and then seeing the path for this individual. Should they go the entrepreneurship route? There's the enterprise and supply development element, and then also tagging procurement attached to it. One of the biggest shortfalls for businesses is that yes, they can find support in terms of growing their business, but they need business to sustain themselves. and that's that access to market, and it's one of the biggest challenges that are out there. From your experience, have you heard companies or some of our members saying that they can't find these types of businesses to support? Have you ever heard those types of statements?
Yeah, I do have a couple, especially the enterprise development initiative. I mean, the supplier one is easy because you get to look on whoever you're supplying to already. But the enterprise, they really don't know where to look. There isn't really a database where you can pick and choose to say, this is the supplier that I want to work with. So I have came across a lot of companies that find it difficult to actually choose beneficiaries for enterprise development.
Yeah. Look, my advice on that is always to companies and even our members, where you can't find, create. And I think that's the important sort of messaging that I would also like to share with viewers out there, is that in the past we've always had these conversations by companies saying that we can't find these entities, so we can't do anything. And again, to me, that's kind of like an excuse to say that we don't really want to do anything. We just can't find them, so let's just not do anything. But there's ways of creation. There's so many businesses out there that need support, that need access to market. And if you've just come up with a program, even for a call for nominations, or call for applications rather, where companies then can see these messages and they can apply, and then you can see, you can actually find. And if you can't find, you can then go ahead and create. Look at calling for applications for individuals that are keen to start their own businesses, and that's how you grow and that's how you create. So hopefully that's something that companies take note of, as well as viewers take note of, just in case they cannot find. There's also the realization of creation. And then from your side, you mentioned skills development being quite an important element, especially for women and upskilling women.
Yes.
What do you think about ownership? Do you find that as an important element? And there's been a lot of debates happening out here recently in respect of the equity equivalent investment program. Ownership, is it something that is equivalent to each other? Which one weighs more? What do you think about ownership in the hands of Black women?
We should also start by skills development, education, awareness. A lot of people don't know or don't understand ownership, especially business owners. So maybe if we can start by educating women or educating people in terms of ownership and how it works and how it entails. Maybe if we can start there, we'll be able to move to the right direction.
Yeah, I think you've got a very valid point. A lot of people don't know the details around ownership. Especially from a scorecard perspective. And you and I, we work in the space, so we know, what are voting rights, what is economic interest, what is net value in the hands of Black people. We know these types of concepts, and I think for the individual that's not familiar with our legislation, they think of ownership as, I just own something. But
Or giving away their company.
Or even that. And I just have something in my hands and that's that, but I don't know what to do with it. So I think your point is very valid in terms of education. Upskilling individuals so they are aware of what ownership actually means, then will help them understand it better going forward, and then also being a part of ownership schemes. All right. So looking forward to Women's Month, what are you hoping to see? Are you hoping to see a lot of workshops, conferences, engagements happening? Because every year we experience that. Is that something that you're going to be seeing?
Yeah, I'm looking for something different. We've had a lot of workshops. We've had every year we have the same thing happening. So I'm looking forward to something new that's going to happen this time around. So I'm interested to see what's in the space and what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that it's always good to create awareness. It's always good to have these types of sessions, and it is important to have these types of sessions. But from our side, we often see a very big spike, in that first week of August. And then, as soon as Women's Day is over, as well as then Women's Month comes to an end, it then just goes back to, normal in terms of normal business. From your perspective, from a corporate, from a company perspective, What do you think companies should be doing throughout the year? I mean, I would think it needs to happen continuously, but do you see that happening? Do you think they should be doing that?
Well, it would be ideal for it to happen. It shouldn't only happen on a specific month. It would be nice if it took place like every day in the company, but obviously seeing it happening is another question. I don't think it's something that it's a norm. I don't think it's a norm, and I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be happening every day.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's not always feasible, but I think always talking about the topic frequently, helps, in terms of sharing messages from a corporate perspective to your employees, to the public. It shouldn't only just be in the month of August because we're celebrating Women's Month and Women's Day, but it should be, continuous. Even if it means programs that you're going to be rolling out on a monthly basis, even covering certain topics, talking about women empowerment, talking about certain areas that impact women. I think that's quite beneficial to corporate culture, and it also drives corporate culture. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think monthly sort of sessions could work in organizations?
Yeah, that could work, but is it feasible? Is it something that can be done? Is it something that can be implemented? That's a question.
No, of course. I think with all different companies out there that they've got their own strategies, depending on how they're structured, depending on their capacity, depending on what can be done, they would obviously see what's best for them.
Yes.
So putting it back to the scorecard itself, we've got quite a number of sector codes out there, and certain sector codes are focused on certain industries, and some industries feel like there's not enough women within these industries. What are your thoughts on that? Do you believe that, with certain industries that have been generalized to not be women friendly, should sector codes start to drive participation? So, example, we've always seen, perhaps the construction industry being less inclined for women to be a part of that industry because of its nature. Do you feel like the sector codes should play a role in terms of driving women to become more interested in that industry?
Yes, definitely. I would say that in terms of, let's just talk about the scorecard itself. Let's say skills development, for example, the skills development element. So basically, if they can have like a line item that gives points for empowering or for giving skills to women, that would be a right direction that we are moving. But obviously, the male-dominated sectors should obviously, they need to empower women.
No, of course. I think that, where there's opportunity through legislation, companies and also, policymakers should engage, have the conversation and, make sure that there's an inclusion there. So, we find that even though they are male-dominated industries, we also need to understand the history behind that. We've come from a point in time within our country where a lot of segregation has taken place based on race, but then also on gender. A lot of women in the past were only meant to be in certain jobs or in certain roles, and that has obviously changed drastically right now. And I believe anybody can be in any role, meaning that, whether it's a male-dominated industry or not, you can then, as a female or woman, be a part of that role. Nothing prevents you from actually being in that role. But I think it's just society as well as the generalization that, women shouldn't be seen in certain roles, and that's kind of the barriers. And your thoughts on that? I mean, do you find that there are still barriers for women within the workplace?
There are definitely still barriers. I think that's also attached to a stigma. But I feel like now women are capable of doing anything that a male can do.
Of course.
So whatever a man can do, also a woman can do.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of giving them a chance to actually partake or participate in those roles.
Yeah, sometimes even better. It doesn't mean that, because you're going to be in a male-dominated industry that you're going to be equal to the male.
Yeah.
You can also be better, as in a female can be even outperforming, out-achieving, male individuals within, certain male-dominated industries. And I agree with you totally on that. I think that, people often find that certain individuals shouldn't be in certain industries. From my perspective, I always see it as if a person is going to want to be in that industry and they're going to perform in that industry, and even if they are better than the other males, then why not? Let them thrive, let them grow, let them do what they need to do to add value to themselves, but also the organization. And I think some people, or maybe some people, feel threatened by that. Especially within male-dominated industries, they feel like with an influx of women coming in, they're not going to be relevant any longer. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, it's a very touchy subject, and people might feel like, I don't want this female coming into my space because I'm going to be threatened. What do you think?
Let's be honest, women are evolving. When we look at the olden days, women were only involved in the kitchen. But now we are spreading our wings. We are now able to do whatever men can do. So I think definitely there is a threat there, because obviously women might be better or do it much better as compared to what men are doing.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I think for viewers out there and individuals out there, I think it's not about who's the better person here. It's about the individual. If you find that somebody is going to be performing better than you and you're doing the same job, so be it then.
Yeah.
You cannot be the best to everyone. You cannot be the best in everything you do. You're always going to find somebody, and this is my perspective, I always find that there's always going to be somebody better out there that is going to be better at something compared to you, and you can't really compete, and you just need to let people thrive. So as we wrap up our session today, any advice that you would like to give women in terms of BE, in terms of empowerment, any sort of advice that you want to share with our viewers, especially women, in terms of anything that you'd like to share?
The only advice that I would give to the viewers or anybody, I would say, get yourself out there, know what you need to know, and don't limit yourself to anything. Anything is possible as long as you put your mind to it.
Very strong words there. I definitely agree, especially about anything is possible, and definitely don't limit yourself. So definitely appreciate and resonate with those words that you've shared as well. So to our viewers, thank you so much for your time, and also I hope you found this quite insightful. Zanele, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's been a pleasure discussing this topic with you. Looking forward to more engagement with yourself and also more value that you add to the BE Chamber. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. To our viewers, we will be catching you in our next episode. We hope you found this quite valuable, quite interesting, and hoping that you would also be doing something for the month of Women's Month, but also for the future months to come. Keep on talking about the topic, keep on empowering, keep on having the conversation about women's empowerment, as well as bringing it within your organization. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to us today and viewing us. We will catch you next time.